Story time about the scariest night of my life. A lot of background information. So the one weekend, my sister and I decided that we were going to go to my stepdad's. And her best friend was going to come also. I was around 13 at the time. Well, my stepdad and my mom had been broken up for about a few months. But my dad was okay with us going to our stepdad's because he had been with our mom for around 7 years and he's always been good to us. And my stepdad's was 2 hours away. So fast forward, we get to his house and my sister and her friend wanted to go to a party. Now, me being older now, I knew that they didn't want to bring me because they were around 16 and I was only 13, but I still tried to tag along. Well, they weren't really talking to me or anything, and I hadn't seen my mom in almost a year. So I told my stepdad that I wanted to go and see her, which was a super big deal because she absolutely hated my stepdad. And she didn't want him around us. And by the way, she lived like 5 minutes from him. So if she found out that we went all the way up there to see him and not her, she would have flipped. So he drives me to my mom's house, like for part 2. Part 2 about the worst night of my life. So before I got to my mom's house, I called her. And I pretty much just told her that I was with my stepdad and I wanted to come see her. Like I said, she lived 5 minutes away. So as soon as we pull up, she walks outside. And she starts screaming at my stepdad. She's like, "Those are my kids. You're not allowed to see them, blah, blah, blah." Even though my dad had full custody and he could decide who we could and couldn't see. So after that, we walk in the house. She isn't saying anything. And this house is pretty much like a trap house. There was a knife holding the door shut. Not a kitchen knife, like an actual knife that you stab people with. She's like, "You can sit down, make yourself comfortable." And I didn't want to sit down because I saw needles everywhere and I just saw a rat crawl under the couch. So I was like, "No, I'm fine." And then she was like, "Sorry, not everybody can be rich like you." Which, just to make clear, I'm not rich. I just knew that she was doing drugs with her boyfriend in that house. After that, she pulls the knife that was holding the door shut out and points it right at me, like for part 3. Part 3 about the worst night of my life. So before she points the knife at me, she had been in the kitchen, right? So I went to go and sneak out the door. That's whenever she ran over, ripped the knife out of the door, and pointed it right at me. And she's like screaming a bunch of shit at me. And she's like, "Oh, what, are you gonna tell your dad that I pointed a knife at you?" And I told her, "Yeah, like, what the fuck do you mean? Am I not gonna tell him?" So at this point, she tries to take my phone. And I told her, "No, you're not taking my phone." And at this time, my sister's also texting me and yelling at me because she had told me that I should not go to my mom's house. Probably for that exact reason. A few minutes later, she hears her boyfriend pull up. I had never met her boyfriend. Like I said, I haven't seen her in probably almost a year. As soon as she hears him pull up, she looks at me and she says, "Go out the back door." She literally hurries up, takes me to the back door, and I have to run out the back door. I don't even know where I am. My sister and stepdad were waiting at the gas station across the street, so I ran over there really quickly. And then a few things happened after that. Let me know if you guys want a part 4. Part 4 about the worst night of my life. Just a little side note, I am in bed, so it's going to be a black screen, and you can probably hear my dog snoring. I'm just going to go from my point of view the rest of the time, because I texted my sister, but I think she's sleeping. So pretty much, I had to call my sister after my mom told her to go out the back door. And there was a Sheetz right across from where she was. But since she had to go out the back, she just saw like all woods and no gas station. So I got on the phone with her. She runs over to the gas station. And when we get back to my stepdad's house, we call our dad and let him know what happened. And the police actually got involved. And they had called my dad because my mom had called them and told him a bunch of stuff that just wasn't true. Like saying that my stepdad was a pedophile and stuff. Just like saying stuff that could actually ruin this man's life. And usually my stepdad would come pick us up and then drop us back off. But the police said that my dad had to come get us tomorrow morning, even though he had full custody and could decide who we could go with and stuff. So my dad came the next day and picked us up.
Cheer Scandal Part 1. So my understanding is that in the South, Texas in particular, where this week's case takes place, cheerleading is a big deal. A big deal. And this is kind of a foreign concept to me. Because I'm from the Midwest, and before I went to high school, there were like 4 cheerleaders on the high school team, and they were not a part of the popular crowd that you see like in movies. And by the time I got to high school, there was no cheer squad at all for the entire 4 years that I went there. I don't know if this was just my high school, but I don't remember seeing cheerleaders from other high schools come to football games either. But anyway, moving on. This week's case really intrigued me for the fact that I'm completely oblivious to how serious cheerleading is. But for those of you who have had experience with how serious cheerleading can be in certain areas, how far do you think a mother would go to get their daughter a spot on the high school cheer squad? This week's case is short, should be about only 5 parts. All of them will be uploaded shortly. Cheer Scandal Part 2. The year is 1990. A young girl, around 13 years old at the time, named Shayna Harper, had taken cheerleading at a gymnastics studio. Her mother, Wanda, had also provided private cheerleading lessons for Shayna because she wanted her to be successful at it. Another girl named Amber Heath also attended the same gymnastics studio as Shayna. And they were both friends, by the way. So these two young ladies were wanting to try out for the 7th grade cheer squad, and I guess in order to do so, they had to campaign for the spots? This is more serious than I ever thought. Amber had an idea for her campaign, which was to pass out flyers with little peppermint candies on them to her classmates. Well, I guess Wanda, remember Shayna's mom, did not like this idea at all and wound up complaining to the school board and everyone else to try and have Amber disqualified. I mean, how are you gonna come for a 13-year-old child like that? You as an adult should know better. Come on. But Amber's plan worked and she was chosen for the cheer squad, and Shayna was not. Cheer Scandal Part 3. So the next year, Wanda decides that she needs to get Shayna on her game before tryouts. So she starts to plan months ahead. She has Vote for Shayna printed on pencils and rulers for Shayna to pass out at school. But I guess these items were not allowed because they were somehow against the rules. But Amber got to pass out those peppermint candies the year before. So Wanda's like, just pass them out anyway. But other parents got wind of this and voted against Shayna being able to campaign. Like, this is so ridiculous to me. But anyway,